Welcome back to the House of Rickville podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Collin Kessler. We will be getting into the show just in a few moments here shortly. I have a couple ad reads we're going to do here. Fair warning to everyone that is listening. I know that there has been comments about younger listeners that listen on to the show. I'm going to warn you that one of our ad reads coming up is not going to be entirely maybe child appropriate. So just a fair warning to anyone that is listening. That will be the case for every show going out from here on forward. So just a fair warning, you might want to, earmuffs. Support for the House of Rick Built is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped, the number one company in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers absolutely the best tools for your family jewels. For all the guys out there that are listening to this show, while this maybe isn't something that you think about regularly, and I think that it's safe to say that neither myself or Zach were thinking about this prior to this partnership, it's certainly something we all deal with. And to be honest, maybe for you, it's, your own family jewels, as Manscaped calls it. Maybe they are uncomfortable. It's an itchy spot. It's an itchy problem. Maybe it's something that it's just kind of unruly and you haven't taken care of, but it's uncomfortable, certainly. Maybe your lack of maintenance is a detriment to other aspects of your life, or maybe you're just simply interested in taking care of yourself a little bit more, and you're interested in finding new ways to maintain your body. Whatever it is, we're here to tell you, fear not. It is for people just like you and I that Manscaped has redesigned the electric trimmer. With the engineering team over at Manscaped, they've perfected the greatest hair trimmer ever created with a newly released Lawnmower 3.0. This third-generation product is built with cutting-edge ceramic trimmer, which has reduced the nicks or cuts that you might have in those areas that you're shaving. We also say, when we say premium means premium. This device comes with a battery that lasts up to 90 minutes for the toughest shaving jobs. It's got waterproof technology, which allows it to be anywhere, even in the shower. It also features an LED light for illuminating the area that you're shaving and ensures a precision shave. It includes a 7,000 RPM motor, which has quiet stroke technology. And it also comes with a stand that allows you to proudly display your Manscaped razor. Now, if you're listening to me speak right now and you want to know how can you experience this firsthand for yourself, because I want you to experience this firsthand for yourself as we at the House of Rick Bill are over here, let's clean that bush up together and let's find a way to get you Manscaped. How do you do it? Well, it's this simple. You go right now and you go to manscaped.com. You enter promo code HOUSE. You get 20% off your first purchase from Manscaped plus free shipping. You show the great people at Manscaped that this show is worth putting money into. You get yourself some great products. You take care of yourself. You get yourself the Manscaped help you need. And once again, you show how important that the House of Rick Build is to you, and you show your support for our show by buying Manscaped products. So once again, go to manscaped.com, enter promo code HOUSE, get 20% off your next purchase plus free shipping. Do it right now. Trust us. Your balls will thank you. Our thanks once again always to our sponsors as well over at Mortgage Partners Group. Jason Keenan and friends, if you have any mortgage problems, you have anything you need in the mortgage or home loan market, make sure to give Jason a call at 314-422-0649. Been sponsored of the show from the beginning, and we appreciate their support as always. Make sure give Jason a call, 314-422-0649. Let him know the House of Rick Built sent you. On this episode of the House of Rick Built, we recap the Billikens' win over Central Arkansas. We talk about Saturday's cancellation. We talk about scheduling issues. We talk about around the A-10. We also preview this week's upcoming game for the men's team. We talk about the pause in the women's basketball schedule, and we bring on Ross Chaifetz. That's all coming up and much more on this episode of the House of Rick Built, starting right now. All right, that's done.
Lost him with his team down by 2 to the corner. Caputo! No good! And it's over! St. Louis is going dancing. An unlikely run. Tying his career high. Victory was out. And here they come. The student section storms the court at St. Louis. Possession game. Mitchell. Cassidy. Ellis.
Got to get a shot off. It's got to be a 3.
Ellis. Mitchell for the tie. Got it!
Oh! Runner off the glass. No. Tip battle loose. Evans is absolutely decked by Gant. Evans stays in the game.
Speaking of leveling,
Conklin leveled Wilcox, and he's down for the count. Driving Evans for Conklin layup. Good whistle foul. Count the basket. You want to play rough? You want to play rough? Let's play.
assume they're not going to foul you. Just take it right to the rim.
Goodwin, shoot for the tie, 3 for the win. Goodwin takes it in, and he got it. We're tied. Overtime, here we come.
Welcome to the House that Rick Built podcast with your hosts, Collin Kessler and Zac Miller. This show is sponsored by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple.
Timeout on the floor, 68-46 St. Louis. This is Billiken basketball.
Welcome back to the House that Rick Built, episode number 105. I am your host, as usual, Collin Kessler, joined as always by my co-host, Zac Miller. Zac, how are you doing?
105. I'm sad today, man.
Why is that?
It feels like it's really giving me like Nam flashbacks to have a game canceled. It's giving me flashbacks to the 8-10 tournament, and it's scary. You start. It's kind of like having a recurring nightmare that I know we're gonna play again, but you know at the same time things are still up in the air, and it's a little unnerving to see a game canceled, and you worry that we're gonna how are we gonna get past this? What's this gonna do to the season?
Yeah, no, there's a definite fear of that right now. The weird thing is this is probably actually one of the biggest episodes that we've ever done. And it's actually got nothing to do with, we have a great guest on this episode. You'll see obviously by the title and by the information.
Guest.
Ross Chaifetz stepped on and talked to us for a very long time. So we're very pleased and very happy that Ross Chaifetz took the time to do that. But this episode is finally going to be the point at which we can start to announce some of the things that have been happening behind the scenes that you guys have not been able to hear about, that we haven't been able to talk about up until this point. There's been a lot of moving pieces happening. And boy, it's just going to be really, really a breath of it's going to be a relaxation point to be able to just say that this is happening. We're going with this and we're doing it. So without further ado, first and foremost, we'd like to thank once again Mortgage Partners Group for coming back and sponsoring the podcast as well. They will be, it sounds like, renewing their sponsorship with the podcast. So we're very appreciative of them for coming on board. We're also adding another new sponsor.
It's a big one, folks.
This is a big one. There's a lot of stuff that's going to go along with this. I'm going to explain all of it here in a second. But we are happy and thrilled to welcome Manscaped as an official sponsor of the House Rick Built podcast. Obviously, you heard the ad reads when you opened the show at the beginning. But very, very pleased to welcome Manscaped on. Happy to have them on board. Here's the deal with the Manscaped sponsorship. This is going to be solely driven by how much we can get people to use our code on Manscaped. So if you go to manscaped.com right now and use code HOUSE, you get 20% off all your purchases plus free shipping from Manscaped. This is going to be so huge. We are going to rely on you guys so much for this. I know that we are one of many people probably right now during the holiday season, especially asking for donations or interaction or whatever. We know that Billikens.com, they just did their fundraiser. We know that it's a tough time, But
if you buy if you buy someone in your life a present for Manscaped, your significant relative wins. They get a sweet product. Their products are awesome. I just got in my care package yesterday. You'll see that video coming out on Twitter and YouTube and all that soon. But it's a win-win, guys. You guys, get something nice for your family member, your significant other, and we get a little pump up from Manscaped. So, and I was watching UFC last night, and you know who sponsors the UFC? Manscaped does. So, I'm not gonna say we're as big as the UFC, but we're getting close.
Well, here's the thing too. Like we'll talk about this at length. There's going to be a lot of content that comes out Manscaped specific. But there's a very wide range of products. There's a very wide range of things that you can buy. And even I would encourage you to strongly, or just take the time to look at the different products that they do offer and not settle. But if it's nothing else than you just buying a t-shirt from Manscaped as a way to support the House of Rick Built and use our code, we would take it.
You know what, guys? I don't want to do too much TMI on the podcast, but I'm wearing my Manscaped boxer briefs right now that they sent me. They are fantastic. They're great. I was really excited. They sent me a travel toiletry bag, and I've been searching for one for years. I feel like at 31, I finally should have one. So I've been searching for one, and God love Manscaped. They sent one over, and I could not be happier with it. They've got the Lawnmower 3.0, which is cool if you got, a hairy man in your life. But it's all very cool stuff. They have a wide range of products. They have anything from, like I said, boxer briefs to trimmers, man. It's deodorants and shaving creams, and it's fantastic. Fantastic site.
It is. And here's the biggest thing. And we touched on this when we were talking about the promotional, kind of strategy with this, but the biggest thing that goes, along with this, the Manscaped sponsorship, and the reason that I'm so personally very, very excited, and I think that this makes a lot of sense for our show, specifically, Manscaped is a big company, and it would be easy to feel like, maybe we're just, selling our souls to the devil, so to speak, here to just, get money or whatever. And I think that the partnership we have with Manscaped is a little bit more than that, because our sales rep for Manscaped is actually a St. Louis native who, in messaging and contacting back and forth with me, one of the things that they said to me was, I grew up in St. Louis. I went to games at Chaifetz Arena when the Billikens were playing under Rick Majerus. I know what the value and the worth of this show is. I know why it's important for Billikens fans to have access to some content like this. So right off the bat, we have someone at Manscaped who is willing to fight for us, and they're taking a big chance on us as well, because the reality of this is we were not qualified entirely for what they are giving us, but they're taking a chance to see.
And he's, his story resonates with us, and you'll hear in the Ross interview how Rich Chaifetz's story resonated with me and why I do the podcast and why I wanted this podcast to be so big. And his story resonates with me. Growing up, going to the, I grew up and went to Scottrade to watch games, the old arena, when I was super young. But to have this guy on and, have this guy on board with us and to tell us about how when he was a kid, he went to the games, man, that resonates with both Collin and I to the core. So, I believe in our sponsors. I believe in Mortgage Partners Group. I believe in Manscaped. I've seen their products. They work. They're great. Their boxer briefs are freaking comfortable. Slept in them last night. They're great. I had a great night's sleep.
It's great products. And it's going to be a really great opportunity for us to hopefully expand what we can offer and what we can bring to you guys. There's a lot of stuff still, content wise, that we're working on developing, the, kind of behind the scenes that we can't talk about just yet, that we can't announce just yet.
A lot of podcast adjacent stuff too.
And
we want to be the best podcast we can be for you guys, but we also want to try to, put little branches out there, that, maybe nobody's done before. So we're always trying to do things that nobody's done before, and getting these sponsors to latch on to us for good is a great way to make sure we can continue to do that.
Yeah.
We're very experimental. We're like a what is that when somebody puts out like an album that's like it's experimental music?
Avant-garde.
Yeah. We're avant-garde. Yeah, that's what we are.
There you go. I think that there's a lot to love about this. And
we're conceptual. We're a conceptual artist.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love about this. And at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for us to grow the podcast without having to set up, a Patreon or a GoFundMe. It's simply a way to connect with a business that's doing really great things. And I think, there's an opportunity just through communication, but, no certainties anywhere in this, but there's an opportunity for more product development and more products being offered for certain Billikens fans that is available with this Manscaped option as well, which is really vague. So I'm not going to go too deep into that because, again, all of this is kind of 50-50. Could it happen? Maybe. Is it going to happen? I don't know. But the bottom line is, use code HOUSE at manscaped.com on all your purchases from Manscaped. Go check them out. Help us support the house that Rick built. And if you buy something from Manscaped and you have a receipt for it and you use code HOUSE, take a screenshot of your receipt, tweet it at us. There's going to be giveaways. We already have one that's secured, that's ready to go. But, we'll be deciding and making, choices on whenever we give out that stuff, and we'll make the information available for you guys when it's time. The reality is we're in a trial period to secure a long-term contract. So our trial period technically officially starts January 1st to January 31st. But if we start tweeting at them and we start getting their attention right away and we make this announcement known, and then we respond.
Let's push on Christmas, guys. Come on. You guys got Christmas shopping. I know times are tough, but, you got a little Christmas shopping. Like I said, these toiletry bags are great. Even their little products are awesome. Their boxer briefs. They're, you don't even have to get a t-shirt, because that's, I like a t-shirt, but, I don't like wearing a logo on my t-shirts. So unless it's a Billiken logo, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, look, there's a lot of products for every walk of life over there at manscaped.com. Use our promo code HOUSE. Help a mid-major podcast out with a major company. And this podcast, we're going to do good things for you guys. We're going to keep trying to do great stuff for you. You guys, give us a little kick.
Yeah. I think the simplest way to put this too is when I was going through having the discussions with our Manscaped rep and trying to nail this all down. I think one of the things that stood out to me was it feels like, Zach, and maybe I'm overstating or understating this, but it feels like there's been for a little while at least a kind of frustration in the Billikens community with the amount of Billikens coverage that's out there, or rather the lack of.
Yep.
And this is an opportunity for the lack of coverage on Billikens athletics as a whole to be changed, to be rectified, to be addressed. And this is an opportunity for Billikens fans to show just how much they want content and just how much they enjoy the content, and to help us continue to grow this brand. So with that being said, please, 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 code HOUSE, manscaped.com, all your Manscaped purchases, 20% off, plus free shipping, everything you get from manscaped.com. Thank you again to Manscaped for joining the pod. We appreciate the support. There will be more announcements, hopefully, in the coming weeks. But thank you again to Manscaped. We can't say it enough. Can't be appreciative enough. It's been huge, and it's been really important and exciting. So thank you to Manscaped. Also, thank you to Carter Chapley, who started posting his blogs under my website. Appreciate that. If you haven't seen, the game previews are now going up on bigredworld.org. That link is on our Twitter page. You can link to our House of Rick Belt page. There's blogs from a couple of different people. Myself, I think Peter's up there still, and now Carter. Also, make sure, if you haven't checked it out yet, the West Pine Bills podcast is up as well. Episode 2 is out right now. I think episode 3 will be out probably about the time that this podcast drops, or a little bit thereafter. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We'll put up links and everything for that on our Twitter as well.
They're a little bit smarter with the numbers than you and I.
Well, yeah, and they just take the time to really dive into the numbers,
Yes.
whereas here we're doing more recaps and interviews and talking to different people. They're doing the in-depth analysis that value, just gets a little bit wordy sometimes and slows down our show. So shout out to West Pine. They're doing a great job with that. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already. This leads us to, now finally, let's talk a little bit about Billikens basketball. Start off, we got to recap the Central Arkansas game. The Billikens put down a pretty firm victory over Central Arkansas, 88-65. Moved to 4-0 in the Atlantic 10. What biggest takeaways from this game, Zach?
I want to remind everyone that good teams win, great teams cover, and TJ Hargrove with a 3 covers for the Billikens. You know what, man? This game made me nervous. I mean, it was a 5-point game with 3 minutes into the second half. It was a little scary, but great teams handle adversity really well, and the Billikens handled a tough showing from Central Arkansas. Won the game they needed to win, and covered and did so with their bench at the end too. So I liked the lack of the drop off when it came to the bench. That really excited me. Again, the baby Billikens, man. I'm really enjoying that kind of secondary action on these games.
Yeah, I think there was, to be a little bit negative here and a little bit nitpicky, there were a few things I thought that were underwhelming, to say
Sure.
a little bit. You held Central Arkansas to 37% shooting in the first half, 9 of 24 from the field. Then you go and give up 14 of 28 from the field in the second half. It's a little bit of a higher percentage. I mean, I know, again, it's nitpicking, but 44% from the field, you'd like to see the Billikens hold the team maybe to a little bit of a worse shooting night. They also shot 43% from three. They shot 4 of 9 in the first and 3 of 7 in the second.
Mhm.
Not exactly what you'd like to see. But then you look at the Billiken breakdown. You got Gibson Jimerson with 21 points. You got Jordan Goodwin with 15 points, 11 rebounds. You got Yuri Collins, 12 points, 9 assists. You got Javante Perkins with 10 points in one of the, I don't want to say the worst games we've seen him play, but certainly not his
Yeah.
best effort this season so far, obviously. Hassan French still trying to work his way into it. It feels like a little bit. 6 points, 8 rebounds, but not a bad game, not a bad effort from Hassan.
I,
I mean,
I,
all
I,
around.
yeah, I want to touch on Perkins, and I sprinkled it into the conversation with Ross a little bit. That what I really liked about Perkins in this one, and he was kind of bad in the first half, man. You through the first 3 games, he really shot really well from beyond the arc and from that 15-foot jumper. And in this game, it was really not working for him. And I guess at halftime, there was a talk or something, and he started attacking the basket more, because when he's within 6 feet, he's cash money. I mean, as much as he's cash money outside 15 feet, he's even better inside. And he started attacking the basket, and then he started pouring in the points, and still got his double figures.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to love about Javante's game, but I think that there's a lot of complacency that could happen early on from Javante if he doesn't continue to keep working on every facet of his game. As you said, if he falls in love with a jump shot, there's a tendency to get away from his ability to attack the rim and get downhill, beat a lot of guys off the dribble. But you also saw with Javante, he also had 4 assists. But speaking of assists, and I'm looking at this, Yuri Collins had 9 assists, but one of the biggest complaints about Yuri Collins was, well, the turnover numbers were too high. Yuri Collins only then went out and had 9 assists and no turnovers whatsoever, and also had 3 steals of his oown.
I'm shocked that turnover got credited to Fred.
Yeah,
I thought for sure that Stu tweeted it out. He goes, Yuri Collins, no turnovers. I go, I'm pretty sure I watched him turn the ball over with my own 2 eyes.
Not according to the numbers. That's all you can say about that. I mean,
it's like a no-hitter. It's like a baseball no-hitter. They get the error. They give the error.
Yeah, Armando Galarraga back in the day when he got blown call at first base. Basically, Yuri Collins has looked as good as he ever has, obviously, this year. And I think you're continuing to see the growth. And I think the thing that Billikens fans had been saying all off season about Yuri Collins when it came to arguing his value to people on a national level or just around the conference, there was always Yuri Collins was a freshman. He was young, and he was taking chances that we were comfortable with. Did he turn the ball over a lot? Sure. But it was because he was trying to, push the ball off the court. He was trying to push the pace of play, and we were okay with those turnovers.
He was making skillful passes and passes. He was threading the needle. He was testing his limits. He was taking chances, but they were calculated chances. And if you mess up, you mess up. And
right, it wasn't just careless and reckless turnovers. It was taking those chances that help you elevate your game, become a better player, figure out what you can and cannot do, where you can succeed and can fail. And Yuri Collins has just continued to grow. And I think, Ross Chaifetz touched on it as well in the conversation we had with him. But I think Yuri Collins, when you think about him as a junior and as a senior after this year, man, I mean, this guy is going to be special. This is going to be one of the best point guards in the country, and there's no question about it. And the fact that he's already getting himself to a point where he's starting to really clean up the turnover percentage and still has high assist numbers and making some incredible passes, I think we're seeing the evolution once again of Yuri Collins and of a lot of these young Billikens players. Gibson Jimerson, 3 of 10 from 3, and he still has 21 points. I think that's a surprising number that a lot of people might have thought if you told someone, hey, Gibson Jimerson shot 3 of 10 from 3-point land, you would go, well, he probably had a bad night. That's probably about all of his scoring. No, he had another 5 of 5 of 13 from the field. So not a great shooting night, but still puts up a decent amount of points and not afraid to shoot even when he's struggling, which is another good sign of confidence as well.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention about Yuri Collins, and I don't remember who I was texting, was when he had the ball and he was on the break, his wrist was going to the hoop. His wrist was turned. He wanted to slam that ball. Do you remember that play?
Yeah, kind of.
And he ended up laying it in, but his arm was cocked back, ready to dunk it. And it was one of the more impressive physical, physical feats I've seen him accomplish in his time here.
Yeah. No, I think, it's Yuri has made just leaps and bounds of growth just in terms of his ball security and in terms of finding a way to either make those passes that he was trying to make last year go through, or just, okay, maybe I know I can't make that pass now. Let's try something different. And it's showing. And he's going to slip up over the course of this year. He's going to have mistakes. I also thought, though, that, 12 points is a really positive sign as well. And 2 of 4 from 3. That's something we haven't seen from Yuri Collins, or at least not a lot of it, showing the ability to shoot the 3 ball a little bit, get to the basket.
That's huge. That is
exciting.
That is going to be absolutely massive to clear up the lane for him to drive and kick.
Well, it's just going to, if you can't sit back and assume that the only thing that Yuri Collins is going to do is drive to the basket and kick out, and you have to think, well, maybe he's going to shoot this, or maybe he's going to pull up from where he's standing at, makes defending him a lot harder.
Yes.
Let's see what else on this beautiful Billikens win on Tuesday that stood out to you, Zach.
I loved Gibson Jimerson. I think him kind of finding, him struggling, or I loved watching this team struggle. Actually, I hated watching them struggle, but what I did like is watching them figure out how to get out of it. And I liked the idea that, you have, again, it showed the depth, and it showed why this team is going to be dangerous, really, really dangerous. That there's no letdown when you go to the, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah. I thought, again, this was mentioned with Ross in our interview later in the show, but Demarius Jacobs had 9 points, went 3 of 4 from the field as the 6th man off the bench. 1 of 1 from 3-point land. Dude's looking like, he looks right. He looks like he's kind of figured out how to kind of make some kind of consistency in his game and become a real scoring threat every time he steps on the court. He also had 3 steals and a block in this game, so a little bit of a stat stuff or effort from Demarius Jacobs. I mean, boy, another good performance from him, which is good to see early on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, Demarius Jacobs just keeps climbing up my radar. He's absolutely phenomenal off the bench. He's understood his role. He's put his ego aside, and he's ready to be the best 6th man he can be.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, again, you talk about the depth, but specifically looking at that guy, the first guy that comes off the bench, and, if you have to take out one of your top 5 starters and give them spell them for a second, having a guy like Demarius Jacobs, who for a fact can come in and provide a spark and can be an offensive threat is always a nice thing. I think hopefully maybe Zach builds his confidence some more for next year as well, that, when he's going to likely have maybe more of a role. I don't know for certain, but I have to assume he'd probably have more of a role in the starting lineup next year. Maybe that builds up a little bit more of his confidence and makes him more effective consistently. I don't know. The other name to look at in this game was also Jordan Goodwin, 7 of 17 from the field.
Another double-double.
Also had
Yuri
6
Collins
steals.
Almost had a damn double-double.
He did. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
12 points, 9 assists. But
it's fantastic.
Jordan Goodwin, the 11 rebounds, the 15 points, and the 6 steals. Again, it's just something that's crazy to me. But another, terrific performance from Jordan Goodwin there.
His defense is sneaky.
I don't know if it's sneaky. I think it's just, Jordan is oftentimes either placed against the toughest guard matchup for him, which is maybe not always the best. I don't know if Jordan's the quickest lateral mover in terms of being as quick as a guard. And sometimes he gets put up against guys that are bigger than him. He gets put up against guys that outsize him a little bit. And so I think you see Jordan get beat a little bit more than we should.
But it shows his basketball IQ and his ability to read and understand what's happening. And it probably also links to his preparation.
Oh, certainly, 100%.
And being ready for his assignment and knowing where his weaknesses lie and how he can, compensate for those weaknesses and that bad matchup for him.
No question. I agree with that. Zach, anything else in this one we need to talk about?
People forget that Central Arkansas's women's softball team and volleyball team are the Sugar Bears.
There you go.
Yeah. Still, you would think in 2020 somebody would have come for that one.
Apparently no one's paying attention to it.
It's Central Arkansas. So.
I guess so. Well, that wraps that one up. So let's move on now, Zach, to the next game of the week. Obviously, there was a 2-game slate. Billikens taking on Evansville.
Let's recap. What a game.
Saturday, 2 p.m. That was an exciting one, Zach. Let's recap. Yeah, that's right. We're not going to be recapping much of anything because the Billikens didn't play Saturday.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Exactly. Once again, we knew this was coming. This was bound to happen at some point. It was inevitable.
That's why I said it. No matter how many times I tried to tell everybody on the podcast and try to make it so for myself that I understood that this was going to happen, it still just kind of hits you.
Yeah. Luckily, sounds like it's got nothing to do with the Billikens. They're not going to have to shut down the program. There's not going to be any pause in play. It's more so that you had an Evansville team that was
the most frustrating thing is that it wasn't a positive test in the Evansville program.
Nope, it was a contact tracing moment. So because of the contact tracing, they decided that there was a chance, high enough chance.
So here's my question, okay? And we can talk about this because we don't have anything else we can freaking talk about. The Evansville game was postponed due to contact tracing that they played a game against a player that was infected, correct?
As I understand it at this point, sure.
They played Eastern Illinois Wednesday, correct? Eastern Illinois was the player that was infected, right?
Sounds that way.
Eastern Illinois played Western Illinois yesterday?
I have no idea. I don't know about that.
Yeah, they played Eastern Illinois. They played Western Illinois yesterday.
I don't know. I really don't know what to say about it other than this is being done out of an abundance of caution.
Sure, and I definitely do appreciate the caution because the last thing you really want is for the Billikens to be a penny smart, a dollar stupid, and play Evansville, and then then you have to cancel the beginning of conference season. So
yeah.
I mean, this is the right thing to do, and
and it goes back to exactly something you'll hear Ross Chaifetz say in the interview as well, which is, what's more important, really? Do you want to play that game against Evansville, or do you want to play against Minnesota? Do you want to keep yourself available for that Minnesota matchup, which is likely going to be the biggest non-conference game that we have on our schedule for the rest of this non-conference season, and maybe even the biggest out of Minnesota and LSU. That Minnesota game is the only other opportunity that we really have to try to break into the top 25 without nationally just being addressed and recognized as being qualified for the top 25. So you have to do everything you can to preserve that game, and taking a risk of playing Evansville when there's any kind of possibility that they could legitimately have an issue with people being infected, you can't take that chance.
So it says, I'm reading an article here by Chad Linskog of the Evansville Courier and Press. UE men played last Wednesday at Tennessee Martin, an OVC team that had tested that morning but didn't have results prior to tip-off. One of the Skyhawks later found his test was positive. He played 2 minutes. Meanwhile, the UE women played the day before OVC foe Murray State, the Racer. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So hey, that's kind of frustrating.
Very frustrating. But again, it's abundance of caution.
A 2 minute bench warmer has canceled the Billikens versus Evansville. Thank you. Thank you.
What are you gonna do?
Nothing.
It's,
You can't. I'm trying to be an adult here. It's hard for me. But
Yeah. This also brings us into the next topic, which is there is this kind of growing issue of the Billikens being able to schedule teams. Obviously, it's seeming more and more like teams do not want to come to St. Louis or do not want to bring St. Louis in to play against them. It seems like teams are unwilling to play against SLU for a number of reasons. I think you could include
leprosy.
Well, maybe that seems a little bit extreme, certainly. But you could include what Ross Chaifetz was talking about in the interview as well, which was that there is this weird thing, and I'm starting to notice this as well, but there's this weird gap where the Billikens aren't top 25. So because they're not top 25, people don't give them the credit of being as good as they are. But they're 27th, they're 26th, 27th, 28th, right on the fringes of being top 25 team, and they're right there. They just don't have quite enough to push them over the top somehow. All right, whatever, fine. But the problem there is that because they don't have the top 25, clout, so to speak, that would, validate these major teams playing them, these major power conference teams playing SLU, because they don't have that, they're not going to get these games, and they're still posing that threat of beating good teams, which makes it even scarier because if a good team, a quote unquote Power 5 good team loses to SLU at an unranked point in time, they're afraid of what that can do to their outlook. And so
I can't believe these teams put so much stock in the AP top 25 with all of the computer rankings and shit out there.
That's the argument I've been making as well. I mean, you're talking about a team in SLU that is okay, yeah, so they're not AP top 25, but what they are is what top, 30, 35, 40 on KenPom. They're a quality team that is inevitably likely going to be ranked and, knock on wood, assuming that nothing catastrophic or absolutely just, world-ending failure or collapse happens here. There's really no reason that this team shouldn't be a top 25 team come, come the end of the season, come the end of conference. So if you lose to this team, that's going to end up being a top 25 loss, or it's not going to be a bad loss by any stretch.
Well, let's put it this way. If you played Oregon or SLU, what's going to be the better loss come the end of the season? It's going to be SLU.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense about this, and there's a lot of things I think, it's just frustrating. But it's case in point for this year, and it's going to be case in point for the Billikens. And at this point, I think if something happens, great, we'll take any games we can get, but you likely have to circle that Minnesota game and say that's where we're going to really have to make, we're going to have to make hay. We're going to have to make a statement. We're going to have to blow this Minnesota team out of the water and really just kind of, put our stamp on the map and say, this is how good we are. This is how, talented we are. And this is how capable we are. But I mean, I don't know if there's anything else we can say on that. So we'll move on now to our next segment around the A10. Now it's time to go around the A10. This is presented by our sponsors over at Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple. Give Jason a call at 314-422-0649. We're going to take a look at the scoreboard since the last time we talked to you guys. The scoreboard for the last week goes as such. So we recorded last Sunday. So on Sunday, there was a game. LaSalle took on Army. LaSalle lost 59-63 to Army. Then on Monday, you had Richmond over Wofford, 77-72. You had UMBC taking down George Washington, 92-81. On Tuesday, you had LaSalle beating Lincoln, PA, 80-62. You had Dayton taking on Northern Kentucky, winning 66-60 in that game. You had SLU, obviously, then taking on Central Arkansas, 88-65 win there. Then on Wednesday, you had Wisconsin beating Rhode Island, 73-62. You had Richmond beating Northern Iowa, 78-68. You had VCU beating North Carolina A&T, 95-59. You had the UMass and LaSalle game postponed. On Thursday, no games. On Friday, you had UMass taking on Northeastern, 94-79 win for UMass. You had Delaware beating George Washington, 68-65. You had Davidson beating Georgia Southern, 77-45. On Saturday, you had LaSalle 58 over Drexel's 48. You had Dayton beating Mississippi State, 85-82. That was an overtime victory for the Flyers, a tight one there, able to pull that out and move to 3-1. You had VCU 77 over Old Dominion 54. You had George Mason and James Madison canceled. You had Maine and Fordham canceled, and you had St. Francis, PA, and Bonaventure canceled as well. And then on Sunday, you have right now, as of time of recording, Northeastern taking on UMass, Rhode Island taking on Western Kentucky, and Richmond taking on West Virginia. Those games will be final by the time we talk next time on the podcast. That is it for Around the A10. All right, so now we get into previewing the upcoming games for the Billikens. We look at what their schedule is going to look like for the next week or so. We didn't touch on this at the beginning of the show, Zach, but because of the sponsorship stuff and everything kind of going on, the amount of content that we're working on developing in the background, we've made the show a one-a-week show. We record on Sundays now. It's kind of our day to record, which obviously makes our life considerably, more difficult when you've got a game like Minnesota on Sunday at 7:30 p.m. at the absolute latest point in the night, which is awesome, and we love that. So we're going to preview Indiana State and Minnesota here to get you ready for both of those games coming up this week. We'll start with Indiana State. Zach, what stands out to you there?
I watched Indiana State play last night. They lost to Purdue by 12. They started that game pretty hot. They started on a 10-1 run. And they looked pretty good for a smaller team going up against a Big Ten sized opponent. They're not going to be a pushover. The only other game they've played so far was against Truman State, a 14-point win, which coincidentally they scored 80 points in and beat them by 24 14. I'm sorry. So 80-66 win over Truman State. It's going to be an interesting game. They're led by Randy Miller. He had 19 points in that Truman State game. He's a 6'2" guard. In that game, though, they allowed 52% from three-point range and only shot 23% from three. I'm speaking about the Truman State game. Against Purdue, they did a little bit better. They shot 31.8% from three and only gave up 37.5% from three to Purdue. But Purdue really focused on banging them on the inside. They had a significant size advantage with Zach Edey on the inside, a freshman who's 7'4", only played 11 minutes, but he pushed around their center for Indiana State. Big minute guy off the bench though for Purdue. Travion Williams came in and also pushed around Indiana State. So what I really want to see is Jimmy Bell and Hassan French and to a great extent Martin Linson use the size and skill to their advantage inside against Indiana State's quote unquote bigs. This has got to be a Billiken win, obviously. That Trey Williams Hassan matchup is going to be a lot of fun to watch. They're super similar, almost identical physical tail of the tape. They're only 8 players get about 10 minutes or more in the game. So I think we're going to really have we're going to say on every preview, we're going to have the depth advantage going into this one. I think there's maybe only 15 teams in the country that have the depth that we have. So it's going to be a depth game. I think you'll see Indiana State hang around in the first half, and I think we'll wear them down in the second. I don't think Purdue had the depth we have either. So Purdue's also not as good as we are.
Well, there you go. So that's Indiana State. That game is coming up Tuesday, December 15th. That is a 7 p.m. start time from Chaifetz Arena. That's also on television at Fox Sports Midwest, on the radio, KMOX 1120 a.m. Then again on Sunday, the big matchup of the non-conference season, the one we've kind of been all looking forward to, the game against Minnesota. That is the Billikens, I believe, first road game of the season. First, really only road game until LaSalle on January the 6th. This is a big one. This is an opportunity to get into the top 25, hopefully. Zach, what are you seeing against Minnesota on December the 20th?
Prototypical Big Ten team, middle of the pack. Middle to upper tier Big Ten. They are 6-0. They've got a lot of games under their belt. They've played every game. Wins over Green Bay, Loyola, 2 over Loyola Marymount, which was an odd situation where they played back-to-back games with that squad. A nice win over an okay Boston College team, 85-80 in overtime. And they have Illinois coming up on Tuesday. So That'll be a good one to watch. That'll be on ESPN2. You'll get to see them firsthand and kind of make your own opinion on what the Billikens are going to see and the Billikens' chances um, come Sunday night. They're led by Marcus Carr. He's averaging 23 points per game and 6.2 assists. So it sounds like he runs the show for them, on the stat sheet in scoring and in the assist realm. He's a junior. I feel like he missed the 18-19 season for some reason. I'm not all that sure why. But he's out of Toronto, Ontario. Going to be a good player. That'll be an interesting matchup to watch between maybe either Yuri Collins or Jordan Goodwin on that guy. So I'm excited to finally see this team go on the road and show national TV what they can do.
So there you go. That is the Minnesota game. Again, that is on December the 20th. That is next Sunday. Yep. That is a 7:30 p.m. start time. It is on television at Fox Sports 1 and radio on KMOX 11:20 a.m.
And don't forget that you can check them out against Illinois on Tuesday night on ESPN.
There you go.
ESPN2.
So that's a little preview for our upcoming games for the week. Real quick, Zach, before we get to our Ross Chaifetz interview, I wanted to talk about here's what's going on right now with the women's team, and I don't know that there's any clear statement that can be made. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe you have a more clear understanding of it, but it sounds like the women's team is on a pause right now for COVID-related issues.
Yeah, a COVID test within the program. I don't really have much. I think it's kind of the private university deal that they don't really release anything regarding health-wise. Not sure what's going on or not sure when they are looking to return to play, but they're going to miss, looks like 3 games. So.
Yeah, well, it looks like maybe more than that, actually, because as they have it on the schedule on Billiken or on slewbillikens.com, right now they've got the Tulsa game from December the 9th postponed, obviously, along with the Carbondale SIU game on December the 11th. But they also have the upcoming games against Indiana State on December the 17th and the upcoming game against Illinois State on December the 20th, all labeled as postponed, which means that the next game for this team that is still currently on the schedule would be against Dayton on December the 29th. That is a Tuesday, the opening game of conference play. And for all their conference games up until George Mason on January the 10th, they have no times listed for those games. So clearly a lot of fluidity.
A lot of ifs.
Yeah, a lot of fluid movement there, a lot of uncertainty and a lot of unknowns for the women's team. So, I think that's a really great kind of example of why when you look at the men's team and how excited we are for the caliber of talent that this men's team possesses this year, you certainly can see with the women's team that this can go south in a hurry. Yeah. And it can be really a lot worse than what we're dealing with right now. Absolutely.
And that is why, and you know what, I've made comments about the benches and that's why you do distance a little bit. You eliminate any unnecessary opportunities to transmit within your team. So
there you go.
See how this goes.
Well,
we do have the Bradley game. We did not get a chance to talk about it. The women's Bradley game.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's recap the women's Bradley game real quick.
Yeah. And the reason I really wanted to push for that is because I made a call out to a certain player on Twitter. It wasn't mean, I don't think. I think I was pretty spot on, and I think anybody who watches the women's team knows that she needed to change her game a little bit this season. And that is, oh my God, Julia Martinez. Yeah. The dynamite point guard that Lisa Stone has brought in as a sophomore. She's now a sophomore this year. Had a fantastic game. She needed to score more, and she did that in spades. She had 17 points, which I believe before this her highest score was 4 points in a game. So big shout out to her. Kaija Harbison, 25 points. Standard Kaija stuff, but big time ups for Julia Martinez in a 69-54 win over Bradley.
There you go. So, yeah, big win for the women's team there before everything kind of shut down. Having a good start to the season, really. I mean, if you look at the 2 games that they've played, a nice little win over Memphis in overtime and a nice kind of confident win over Bradley, and unfortunately now they're in a waiting game, in a holding pattern, so to speak. So
one of the
we await that.
interesting side notes is Brooke Flowers only had 5 minutes in this game, down from 22 in the home opener.
Yeah, it's not great to see, but hopefully that whatever that was is not going to be a long-term issue, whatever the reason for her not playing. Now, Zach, we go into our interview with Ross Chaifetz. Finally, we spent a lot of time talking to Ross Chaifetz. This is it's a really interesting interview.
It's
really
a great
conversation.
Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah, it was a good time. So without further ado, here is Mr. Ross Chaifetz. And now we are joined once again, as a matter of fact, Zach, he's been on the show once before, if we remember correctly. But joining the show once again is Mr. Ross Chaifetz. How you doing, Ross?
Good. How are you guys? Good to be with you.
All right.
A little sleepy. Yeah, my alarm didn't go off this morning, but hanging in there. A recurring guest, Ross Chaifetz. Put some respect on his name.
That's what I'm saying.
I think I was one of the originals, like way back. I mean, it must have been over a year ago, right?
Yeah.
You were an OG podcast listener.
That was the trip to the A10 tournament. That was when we had you on.
That was the airport.
Right.
That was the airport episode. The infamous.
Oh yeah.
Recording from the airport.
Indeed.
Doing a Zoom call from the airport would have been a wild scene too.
Yeah, the video would have been interesting for sure. We would have had people walking around behind you trying to see if they get on the recording maybe. I don't think we're that big. I'd like to think we're that big.
In our minds, we're that big.
Yeah. So, Ross, you're certainly having a little bit of fun with Billikens basketball this year, certainly staying very involved. What's it been like for you following this team right now?
You know, it's been unique, challenging year, but honestly, just glad that it's coming together. I mean, the way that the season was left off last year was frankly pretty disappointing in February or March when things got cut short and, no conference tournament opportunities, no NCAA tournament. Frankly, feel bad for teams like Dayton, and I think it was a missed opportunity for us. I think we were a clear challenger to them, but, just exciting to have the season, in place and the team's playing well. So just excited to have basketball back, man.
We didn't get a chance to talk to you on the pod over the summer. I don't remember if you and I had talked about it off, but were you in Brooklyn when it got canceled or were you en route?
No. So it's funny, we had heard chatter. You started to see the dominoes fall, right? Some of the smaller conferences were canceling their tournament early. And I think if I remember correctly, we were slated to play on like Thursday once at the point at which we had earned that 4 seed. And I had a charity event that my family was planning on going to Wednesday. So we were going to hit that and then fly right to Brooklyn. But I just remember like monitoring my phone every 30 minutes, like checking for tweets. Is it canceled? And finally it was. It was obviously disappointing, but didn't get out to Brooklyn now. Speaking
of cancellations, we're coming off a day. We're recording this on Sunday, the 13th of December, and we're coming off a day where we got news that the Billiken game against Evansville was either postponed or canceled. We don't know yet. But thankfully it's not from the Billiken side as far as COVID goes, but you kind of get a little flashback. And it almost feels like, oh my God, are we doing this again? Are we going to play again? Like when's the next game? Have you had that kind of little Sunday scary type feel too?
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it is, I think it's tough to avoid, not losing any games this entire season. The way I look at it, whether it's, one team's fault versus another, at the end of the day, like every game is a matchmaking process. There's travel involved in most cases, potentially even flights. And I think the NCAA, knew that risk going into things. I think you never want to see a game canceled, but I think each of us, if we're being honest with ourselves, anticipated it happening at one point or another this season. Fortunately, I think if this is the only cancellation, I think it's falling at a time that is arguably beneficial. I mean, the game you hate to lose at this point is Minnesota, right? And then you never want to lose any conference games. So I think if it has to happen, I think it's happening at the right time, as sick as that sounds. It's unfortunate. And, we were just bantering, offline before the show started. It's just sad that now we got to wait, a couple more days for the next game. And I know the team's working hard to slot a few more games in, and I know we'll touch on that at some point. So, you hate to see the team lose a game, but I think it was inevitable when you think about the circumstances surrounding the season.
Yeah, I kind of I never got to it, but I've always wanted to point out that like it's not an if we're gonna miss a game, it's when, and I'm glad as well that we're gonna have a game against Indiana State to kind of ramp back up to Minnesota. And Indiana State's no slouch. I watched them play Minnesota or who'd they play Purdue last night, and they played them tough despite being completely outsized by the Big Ten team. But luckily, we're going to have some ramping up. You mentioned the scheduling. What have you been in contact? First of all, how weird is it to kind of not be able to be around the program and kind of only be in touch with the players and the staff and the athletic department through the interwebs, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like, I'll be honest with you. I mean, it's the most exciting time of the year for folks like myself, especially my dad. I mean, we look forward to this all year, and then we're glued in front of the TV, and obviously at every opportunity we get, we're at Chaifetz for the games. So it's tough to miss out on those experiences, right? Especially when you're looking at a season where there's an opportunity to do something really special. So, haven't had a chance to interact with anybody in person. I try to do my best to stay in touch with the coaching staff, especially some of the younger guys, just to kind of chat with them and let them know we're here to help. And kind of just hear a little bit about the general mood of the team, what they're thinking about the season, how they're interacting and engaging with one another. I know it's been a challenge from a coaching perspective, not only just the fact that the entire season is up in the air, but I think it's challenging even when you think about the components of team building more broadly, right? You can't get the guys in the locker room. You can't do team dinners as often. You got to trust what they do, when they're away from practice and when they're on their own. So that's one of the challenges that I've been hearing most frequently. When you think about the players, I try not to kind of intervene with them too much. I let them do their thing. I shoot them a nice message when they have a great game, let them know I'm here to support them. But those challenges definitely exist, and I hear about them. That being said, they tell me so often how hard the guys are working, especially in the face of adversity. I think, we've seen first and foremost that this team finds a way to capitalize on those opportunities. And I know that they built such a strong bond around this team blue mentality. And fortunately for us, we're in a situation where we're carrying a lot of our talent over. We've got some new guys, but they're not necessarily the core of the team. And I don't mean that from a talent perspective. I just mean like who's getting playing time. So a lot of those guys are already kind of in sync. And I think that's where the opportunity is for a team like us. So I've been trying to stay in touch with them, but kind of trying to balance that, those requests for information with just kind of letting them do their thing, right? Trying not to get in the way.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting because I was chatting with Ford Stewart last week, I guess, about something that we were trying to do. And one of the things that he brought up is kind of the frustration of them losing any opportunity they had, because they've been on the phone, obviously, trying to get any of these games they can possibly get. And I think you see that frustration kind of bubble over when they're tweeting out from the main, SLU Billikens account, like, we will literally play anyone, anywhere. Is there a game on your mind that makes a lot of sense that should be happening that hasn't happened yet? I know that that's been a conversation of late.
I mean, look, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I think, to me, every game makes sense, right? If there's a top 25 team out there that loses a game, got to work your ass off to get them in. Now, I understand scheduling restraints. I understand travel. I understand all that. I think there are local opportunities that could be fantastic matchups. Now, they all have their own unique challenges, but, you think about Mizzou now all of a sudden is having a fantastic season. You think about like a Northwestern, a Loyola Chicago, a Marquette, Illinois. There are a lot of teams that are right in our backyard that I think make sense geographically. And I know for a fact that our guys are having conversations with lots of those teams, but it's a challenge logistically. I would love to see any of those games happen, right? I mean, I think at this point, any top 50 team would be a fantastic matchup. I know it's been a challenge. I've heard firsthand from the staff. They've reached out to literally any and every top 25 team that has lost a game. And for whatever reason, they just don't want to play us. And I think that's because we're in a unique spot right now from like a rankings perspective, right? We're not like top 25. When you top 25, you're in a unique spot because people want to play you because it's either a good win or it's not a bad loss. Where we're at right on the fringe, that kind of 26, 27 borderline, wherever you cut it, is challenging because there are a lot of teams that recognize we should be top 25. But if you lose, it's still considered a loss to an unranked team, right? So that's the challenge there. But I know the guys are working hard at getting games in. I know they're trying to do it this week. I don't know how those pieces are going to fall. I know we got something planned for Tuesday and then Saturday. So I'm hoping we can get something in. I think there's a lot of opportunities to do so. Lots of good teams floating out there. Do I know who it's going to be? No, but I got my fingers crossed.
Coming back, we've talked about what hasn't happened, but what has happened is the Billikens are 4-0, I think. Yeah. What have you seen this year that has just really excited you in the games we've seen so far?
Fluidity, I think, is one way to sum it up. I talked a little bit about that core, right? That kind of starting five that has played together for a couple of years now. I think that's evident on the floor. I think guys are really starting to slot into Travis Ford's system really, really well. And when you got a guy like Yuri Collins, who frankly, in my opinion, is the glue of the team, knows where guys are going to be, knows where players, spots are, so to say, knows how to get the ball to those guys. I think the fluidity, the efficiency has been uber impressive. I mean, you talk about a Billikens team that the first team to break 100 points since 1995. I mean, that's impressive. And not only break 100 points, but we're averaging over 80. I mean, you guys know going back 5 years from now to score 80 points in a game would be like a dream come true, right? So I think, I think there's an argument to be made that we're kind of hitting on all cylinders. It's really exciting to watch.
Has there been a breakout kind of a new guy? I guess not so much new guy. I mean, I guess we'll exclude Gibson Jimerson because we knew what we were getting. But I'm talking, has there been one of the younger cats that have really impressed you early on, or new to the team? So we'll
I'll mention a couple. When you talk about like new guys, or newcomers first season, I think Martin Linson has been incredibly efficient. He's been a pleasant surprise to me. The first game I remember watching him thinking, okay, he seems a little bit disjointed. I'm trying to figure out his pros and his cons, right? But then you can see, I think generally he's got really good footwork. He's super efficient in and around the paint. I think he shot like over 60% from the field last year. I think he's a great get for the team. Provides some nice, balance, slotting into that 4 or 5 spot alongside guys like Hassan, alongside guys like Jimmy. So I've been super impressed with him. I think Markai Strickland, arguably highest upside of any of the younger guys on the team. I mean, he's thrown down some like insane alley-oops that make you think, this guy's ceiling is there is no ceiling for this guy. So he's somebody that I'm really excited to see kind of grow into the program over the next couple of years, especially as guys like Jordan step away. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him. Another guy I'll mention, and I know he's not a freshman, he's not a newcomer, but just Yuri Collins has just been so impressive to me. And I think he's overlooked. Like you look at his assist to turnover ratio, and it's one of the best in the country right now. I want to say top 5, top 10 maybe. I think he's one of the most overlooked point guards there is right now. I think if he's not already one of the best point guards in the country, I mean, wait till he's a junior or a senior, right? His vision is incredible. And, you see him driving to the hoop on breakaways and he just passes the ball off. He's a pass first point guard. Super, super impressive. Can't wait to see him grow into the program. Those are a couple of guys I got my eye on. You mentioned Gibson, super exciting, super efficient shooter, just absolutely wet from 3. It's good to see Fred back. I mean, we got a nice balance between younger and older talent at this point, and I know that's been one of Travis's goals is to just build recruiting class upon recruiting class, and I think that's what I'm most excited for outside of this season is just the opportunities that lie ahead of us and success success breeds talent, and it's sort of a never-ending cycle, right? The better players you get into the program, the more success you have, and that helps with recruiting. So lots of young guys I'm excited about, and I think the future for this program, I think they can really take us to some fantastic levels.
You mentioned Markai and Yuri, and to add in there, Javante Perkins, and I wonder if you feel the same way. Is that really what people touted Travis Ford as coming into St. Louis University is a big time recruiter, get some big guys. But really where I think he's excelled is getting guys like, Fred Thatch was a player out of Sikeston, Missouri. It's still Sikeston. It's a small town, USA, outside St. Louis. Yuri Collins, under the radar point guard out of St. Mary's, not super highly recruited. Markai Strickland, I think he had a couple offers, big offers. Javante Perkins wasn't really highly recruited out of high school, and we got onto him super early. Do you think that Travis Ford's most underrated quality is his ability to find those diamonds in the rough, or guys that are overlooked maybe for whatever reason?
I don't know if it's his most overrated
or underrated trade. Underrated trade.
Sorry, yeah. I don't know if it is his most underrated trade. I actually think his most underrated trait is his ability to put together a cohesive defense. I've been most surprised by the defensive coaching capabilities that he brings to the table. And it's interesting. You raised the point about when he was brought into the program. I remember talking to folks like my dad, and I remember talking to Chris May, and it was one of the biggest concerns we had as, a booster or whatever you want to call my dad being involved in the program. Rick Majerus was a fantastic kid, and he got us on this upward trajectory. We were top 25 for a couple years consecutively. And then the wheels came off, so to say. And I remember my dad having some pretty honest conversations with the administration about, if you want folks like me to continue to support the program, you got to bring in a top tier coach, right? Otherwise, can't stand behind you if you're not going to win consecutively. That's what excites folks like us. And, I remember sitting with my dad and we were kind of evaluating some of the options and looking at who the administration, the athletics program was evaluating. And I remember discussing Travis Ford and obviously the clear number one, pro that he brought to the table was his ability to recruit. We knew he could do that fantastically. There were some question marks about like his coaching, for whatever that means. He had a little bit of off and on success with some of his past teams, getting to the tournament and missing the tournament, especially with some really great players. So the idea was, or the challenge rather was, he can bring the quality talent to the table. Can he capitalize on it and make a run? And I think in the Atlantic 10, you approach that a little bit differently than you do in a Pac-12, in a Big 10, in a Big 12. Travis obviously came from Oklahoma State. So I think everybody knew he was a fantastic recruiter. The question was, can he bring it all together, right? Can he bring that talent in? Can he capitalize on that talent, and can he make a run? I think he's proven that ability to do so. I think the 2019 tournament run was exceptional. And I think he really put a spotlight on his coaching abilities, and I think it was fantastic for the program. So that's what I would say about Coach and his kind of administration, if you will, overseeing SLU basketball. I think it's been super exciting. I think he proved that he's an exceptional recruiter, and I think he proved some folks wrong who said that he couldn't coach the right way. I'm looking back, I think it was a fantastic hire. I'm glad he's at the head of our program, and I think he's going to take us to new heights that we haven't seen since the Majerus era, and hopefully we can do it consecutively and repetitively.
Yeah, I think the other thing that has stood out to me, and I'm sure it's been obvious to a lot of other Billikens fans, but like with the Fleetwood Mac video that Travis Ford did, there's a certain element to his kind of youthfulness that is certainly not something we would have gotten out of Rick Majerus, I don't think. But it's also something this like engagement on social media. I don't know what exactly the numbers are that they post out, but every once in a while I see something from the Billikens official Twitter account where like the Billikens Twitter community is like the number one in engagements or something outside of like Power 5 schools, whatever.
which is
Point being,
wild. I want to see those numbers because I don't see the. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure they wouldn't lie to us, but I mean, that's wild.
yeah.
Right.
I'm just curious. I mean, what is your kind of feel or gauge of the Billiken Twitter community as it is? Because for me, even it feels like just in the 2 years since we've been doing this, I've just found more people that have been on Twitter and Billikens fans, so it's automatically
Yeah.
grown, and it's kind of skewed my opinion. I was curious if you have a different view.
Yeah, I think there are a couple elements at play there. I think first and foremost, to your point, I think Travis is more in tune with the community, knows how to communicate with the community, knows how to excite them, knows how to get them to games, knows how to get them engaged. Again, Rick was a fantastic coach, but he was missing that element, right? He would walk in interviews pissed off and he would be cursing and he would leave. But, to his credit, he'd get it done on the court. I mean, we were beating top 25 teams. Travis, on the other hand, a little bit younger, but more in touch with those avenues that you just discussed, right? The social media, the Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram, knows that they're not only a way to connect with the community and the fan, but also a way to recruit, right? And I think that there's a point where there's two opportunities merge together. I mean, the more you're active, the more not only recruits see that, but fans see that, the students see that, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, Coach Ford has done a really good job of getting in front of the local media. He's on, weekly talk shows. He makes, TV appearances. He's on podcasts. And that's the stuff that's important when you want to keep people rolling into Chaifetz Arena, when you want to keep the fans excited. So I think there are a couple of elements at play there. And the other thing is just think about the growth of social media over the last couple of years. The opportunity didn't really exist as strongly when Coach Juris was around and Coach Cruz as well. But I think Coach Ford and his staff have done a really, really good job of taking advantage of that opportunity to connect with the fans and use it as a recruiting tool as well.
What have you missed most about rolling into Chaifetz Arena and watching the game?
Oh my God, that's a great question. Just the energy of the fans, the energy of the players. As much as I see them playing hard, you can tell that there's that fan dynamic missing, especially when you think about a guy like a Jordan Goodwin or Hassan French. They feed off the crowd. They're throwing down dunks, they're turning to the fans, they're screaming and flexing and smiling, and they're giving high fives, and that's what makes it fun. So that element missing is obviously something that is unfortunate. And the other thing, just on a more personal level, is my dad has obviously made a lot of contributions to SLU, and it's something that's created a bond between us, and something that we look forward to every season, which is getting down to Chaifetz and just enjoying the environment and watching the team play. So on a personal level, that's been something that I've missed. But I think at the team level, you can see that fan dynamic is missing. And it's something that I get a little jealous about when I see the Florida State's playing and they're at 25% capacity. I watched an Arizona State game and the stadium is full. And I think it's something that I don't want to say it's something that the NCAA committee needs to take into consideration when they think about ranking teams. But I do think in some scenarios it gives an unfair advantage, right? Yeah. To have those fans there, especially when you think about, it's much easier if I'm an away team and I'm traveling, it's much easier to walk into an empty arena, right? When there's no quote home court advantage other than the floor and the hoop itself. Walking into a hostile environment is a totally different scenario.
No, I totally agree with that. I think it's wild. I mean, I think our audience kind of knows that I spent the last all of November in Florida, and it is Florida State's having fans, Arizona's having fans. It is just wild to see the differences of kind of strategies in each state. Did you guys get cardboard cutouts in the seats? Did they hook it up?
So I don't want to comment on that because there's a couple family Christmas presents that revolve around some of those cardboard cutouts, and maybe I just gave it away. So if I got any family members listening, I apologize, but
we can cut that out. We'll cut that out.
Cut that out. Yeah.
I'm sitting between two dogs, so everyone and their mom texted me and made the jokes about where I am.
Speaking of the cutouts, what I don't get is the university slotted a couple rows behind the bench. even if fans aren't like donating them, just like cut them out and like throw them around the arena so it doesn't look totally empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, like just I mean, like what did you see where the Denver Broncos did all of the South Park characters?
No, I didn't see that.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, even if they did like St. Louis celebrities and put them up everywhere, I mean, I don't see,
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely fill it. Some of them like I think LaSalle had them, and I made the joke that it like doesn't look anything different than a normal game day over there. There's like 3 or 4 fans, but yeah, man, it's a weird situation. I get this like weird FOMO of like not being able to go to the arena, but then I realize that nobody gets to go to the arena, so it kind of mellows me out a little bit. But
yeah, I think there's talks about potentially later on the line during the season. I don't know at what point, but like maybe slowly opening it up, and maybe it's not the public. Maybe first and foremost, just like friends and family of the players and the staff and stuff like that. But like honestly, even just getting like 50 or 100 people in there just to hear like a cheer is helpful. I watched some games, put aside the Arizona States and the Florida States that we just referenced, but like even in venues where they got like 100 fans, just to hear people reacting to like a big dunk or like a poor foul call, that changes the whole dynamic of the game, in my opinion. The players really feed off that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what happens come tomorrow morning with the distribution of I don't want, you probably watch the news so much more than I do, but I've heard that the vaccine is being distributed
going out already, actually.
That is so I'm interested to see what that changes and what the numbers and everything. So I'll finally actually be watching coronavirus news for the first time in the last 6 months. So it's an exciting season. I know it's really like, I think Collin and I got on, like, have texted back and forth that this is our Sully my good name year. This is our Dayton year because Sully's podcast blew up last year. I mean, he had SVP on, and so I'm hoping maybe we'll get a few big games with individual players, and it'll pump up the podcast a little bit.
I'm hoping we can put it all together. I mean, one of the things that concerns me is like you look at what's going on in college football, and there are some teams in the top 25 this year who haven't been there ever or for years. Teams that a Big Ten school who typically doesn't break into the rankings is there now, right? And I think I hear a lot of my friends who are football fans, they talk about it, and it's like, oh, like Indiana's a top 10 team, and the reaction is like, that doesn't matter, it's the COVID year. Like the teams that are in the top 25, whoever wins the national championship, like this year is just going to be totally forgone. This year is irrelevant. And so one of the fears that like I have, as much as I want like SLU to make a massive run, like Final Four type run, is that people like reflect on the season. They're like, oh, but like it was a COVID year, so like that's a throwaway year. And I don't think that comparison is like a fair one when you think about like college football to college basketball. But that's just one of the things that scares me. And I mentioned it earlier, but like I feel bad for the Dayton fan who last year like saw their team have. And not to compliment Dayton, but their team
I have mild sympathy.
You know what I mean? Like their team make a once in a lifetime run, top 5 team going into a potential tournament run where like, the big head analysts were like, oh, this is a Final Four, like championship team. And then the fan gets not only the conference tournament, but entire March Madness tournament just kind of swept away from them. And, you got to feel bad for that fan who's waited 10, 20, 30 years for a moment like that, and it's just stripped away. So I guess I just say that to make a note that, this is a unique year. I want us to make a run. I think we have an ability to do so. I'm just glad that we have college basketball, frankly.
Yeah, I've kind of just dumped all my energy into college basketball. Like I got like 3 screens going. I have alarms set for when games start during the day. Like it's crazy how much you like how much time it can take up.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting. Like I'm sitting at work at like 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I got a top 25 matchup to watch on the screen right behind me. I mean, that would have never happened in a normal season.
I got a little tear thinking about that. Just being able to watch.
And I'm hoping that there's still an opportunity for us to slot some games in. I mean, you saw on the Twitter account, they're looking for a couple games this week. I think the Thursday matchup makes sense. They mentioned they're looking for a matchup on the 14th. That makes me a little bit nervous because I think Indiana State is a little bit of a sleeper team that I don't want to overlook. And so to like schedule top 50 matchup the day before, that makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, I agree. I think this too, what this team has going for it is that you can play so many different ways that it's all like if you schedule a team a day out, that team is not going to be ready for you, and you're ready for whatever it is you do.
That's
like
true.
it's you know, Majerus would put out a team and he would not bend to whatever the other team was doing. He did what his team did, and that's how they won. And I think with a team like the Billikens, you have a team that can hit from the outside, that can bully you on the inside, that can defend you till you cry. Like, I mean, it's a team that can beat you in so many different ways. Like I think I mentioned that it's got to keep. It would keep even the top 15 coaches awake at night thinking about if they had us on the schedule, thinking about how to defend them or how to attack them. So
yeah, and it's one of the things that I know coaches talked about on talk shows, and some of the things that I hear about from the younger guys on the staff is, you know, I ask them kind of what they're focused on, right, and how do they scout and how do they prepare for teams in this, you know, unique season. And what I hear is really it's just all about principles, right? Like focusing on the core values of the team, how they play together, versus scouting for an individual team, an individual player. Because like we saw yesterday, you know, games can disappear in 2 hours notice. And I think that's, to your point, 100%, Zach, that's what makes it so challenging and so intimidating, frankly, when you think about the Billikens is we're just so difficult to scout against, right? I mean, even if you scout us to totally eliminate 2 or 3 players from the game, even if you want to lock down a Jordan Goodwin or a Javante Perkins, we have so many options. I mean, we'll beat you with outside shooting. We'll beat you on the inside. We'll beat you with passing. We'll beat you in transition. I don't know how you scout against a team like ours, especially in such a unique world. And I think that was and will continue to be evident as we move forward in this season, is just the ability to scout and match up against the Billikens. I think our biggest opportunity this year.
Yeah. And I think we talked about it too on the podcast as well with Javante Perkins. It feels like we have something different this year, and maybe I'm overstating it because maybe I've been overstating it since, you know, the point at which he showed up on campus. But I feel like we have kind of our NBA, if you want to, quote unquote, guy, the guy that can go one-on-one and can put a team on his back for a couple minutes, get a couple buckets and, you know, dry spells when we're struggling. And if teams go, okay, he's getting hot, now we have to double down on him. And now all of a sudden he's creating, he's kicking out. He is the guy that kind of motor the team, something we haven't really had to that level.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You know, we had that a little bit a couple years back in Javon Bess. He had a little bit of that mentality, that skill set, but we weren't deep enough. So you get a team who has a really good lockdown defender, and they could, you know, not eliminate Javon Bess from the game because his presence was always felt, but there's a big difference when you can take a player like that who's averaging in the high teens and take them down to 9-10 points a game. That makes a major difference, especially for a team like us that at the time was averaging like 60 points a game. You're talking about eliminating like 15% of our scoring just by taking one player out of the game. And I think, Collin, you raise a good point, because now we have that. We've got Javante Perkins, who is that same equivalent, you know, NBA caliber player, but our teams can shut him down. He can have a bad day. He can turn the ball over, whatever. And we've still got such a diversified set of scoring that it still doesn't shut our team down. You know, I think we've got 5-6 guys who are averaging over 10 points a game. I mean, even if you eliminate Javante Perkins, a guy like Gibson Jimerson's going to step up. He's going to hit 3 or 4 threes, and he's going to pull up for a couple jumpers, get to the hoop, and he'll put up 20 points. You know, we've seen an ability from Jordan Goodwin to put up 20 points in a game. Hassan French, we haven't seen his best this year. You know, when's he going to, no disrespect to Hassan French, but, you know, when's he going to show up to his full capacity? His presence is felt, but I think he's got an ability to average 15 and 10 a game, and I don't think he's there yet. And I mean, you can keep firing names. Then you got like Demarius Jacobs coming off the bench, who's having an incredibly efficient year. He's hitting threes. He's getting to the hoop. He's becoming a much better passer. So I just don't know how you shut us down offensively, even if you eliminate our top player. And that's what makes our team so unique this year.
I think that was evident very much in the LSU game, especially Demarius Jacobs. You watch that game and we struggled. I mean, we could not shoot. I remember watching that being like, oh no, classic Billikens. And then Demarius Jacob comes off the bench and just goes and gets buckets. And you're like, okay, that's what makes this team special. That
Right.
is what is going to get us wins when, you're playing Duquesne in snowy Pittsburgh in February.
Right.
You
And
know,
no ego involved, by the way, because I mean it's tough. Demarius Jacobs, I think, started just about every game last year, and was a good player. Averaged like 6 or 7 points a game. Now, I'm sure coach had to have a tough conversation with him and say to him, "Hey, I'm going to ask you to come off the bench this season." He's done that. No attitude about it, at least based on what I've seen. And he's becoming a much better player because of it. He's now averaging 11, 12 points a game, and it's making our team as a whole, it's making that system more cohesive when everybody, coach talks about buying into your role. Like, what do you do, right? Are you a rebounder? Are you a shooter? Are you a passer? Like, everybody does their thing. And I think Demarius is a prime example of that this season. I mean, it's tough to go from starting, for a top 5 A10 team to coming off the bench. And I think he set this goal of, Demarius, that is, he wants to be, 6th man of the year in the A10, and that spot's opened up, right? Because Gervonta's now a starter, and I think Demarius has proven an ability. He's shined that light on himself, I think, if you will, and he's doing it with no ego, which I think is very impressive, and I have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old Abraham Lincoln quote: "Whatever you are, be a good one." And
Exactly.
and Demarius has really he said, "All right, you got me coming off the bench first. I'm gonna be the best damn first man off the bench you've ever seen," and that's just a beautiful, beautiful attitude to have towards basketball, I think it's going to make him a successful person in whatever he does, whether that be basketball or life.
Yeah.
That's the perfect attitude to have. I wish I had it.
And I think without that 2019 run through Brooklyn into the NCAA tournament, I think that story becomes a little bit harder to tell for Travis, right? Because I think the reason that was a successful season, the reason that was a successful conference tournament run is because everybody put their egos aside, bought into the system, and just brought their A game every single day, right? And I think Travis can point to that, and he can say, look at what happens when you buy into Team Blue. Look what happens when you buy into our mentality. We're more successful together. And I think that's what makes this team, really unique.
Yeah, I think whatever happens with the fans and whatever happens with coronavirus and the vaccine, I think it's gonna be one hell of a ride. Whether it's sitting on our couch or sitting in those beautiful blue seats at Chaifetz Arena, and I'm excited. I'm looking forward to playing these games and getting this conference season rolling, and hopefully we can get your pops on for an episode coming up.
Yeah, he would love to do it. It's going to be an exciting year. I'm looking forward to those Richmond matchups. I'm hoping, I got my fingers crossed, that we're both top 25 teams at that point, because I think that would just be great, not only for us but for the league in general. So I think we got some exciting times ahead of us. I'm really excited for the Minnesota game. I think that's going to tell a lot about the identity of our team. First game on the road against a team that's top, 25, top 30, top 40, whatever caliber, with a couple superstars players. I think we got some opportunities ahead of us, and I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, I'm pumped up. Collin, I know you're pumped up too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, this is going to be, I think we've talked about it on a number of occasions, and obviously with all the announcements that, Ross, you obviously haven't heard because we've done this interview separate from the rest of the show that we have today. But with all the announcements coming out right now about the stuff that we've been working on behind the scenes and some of the stuff that we haven't even been able to talk about yet, I think just from our perspective, all of a sudden this year looks like a much more important year because we're seeing an opportunity for growth on our end. Then when you look at that, there is a team that we're actually supposed to be following here that's going on as well. They're going to have a pretty big year. This is exciting for us on multiple facets and multiple levels, and it's just getting more and more fun for us and more enjoyable. So yeah, I think we're
and credit to you guys, just on behalf of like Billikens fans in general. We needed something like this, like a couple of young guys who just like put a podcast together. At first, just kind of wing it, but just kind of talk about what they see, right? I think it makes it easier to engage as a fan. I think it enhances and broadens the fan base. So, I think what you guys are doing is a great thing, not only for yourselves, for the brand you're building, for the team, but for the fan base generally. And I think it's lining up at perfect timing. I think we got an opportunity to break into the top 25, and what's good for the team is good for you guys. So credit to you guys for putting this all together, and just on behalf of the average fan, thanks, because it makes it easier to engage. It makes it easier to follow. It's exciting when you hear recaps. It's exciting when you got guys that are as passionate about the team as you guys are. So, I just say that to mention, great job to you guys, and keep it going.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. That's incredibly kind of you, and thank you for being an OG supporter of this endeavor. I mean, without your, you have some clout on Twitter, and when you retweet our stuff and talk with us on Twitter, it definitely helps to grow the pod more than most engagements.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, so before we wrap here, I got a question for you guys. I want to hear
Yep.
each of your hottest takes related to the team this season.
Okay. Well, mine's
I'm
easy because mine's been the same one, I think, for a year and a half now. And I don't know how I worded this originally, but it came something close to, but maybe not exactly. I thought Javonte Perkins might be in the Wooden Watch, more or less. Just
That's
because
not
I
hot.
think,
That's lukewarm, buddy.
well, it was hot for a long time, and now it's starting to become more and more lukewarm. But I mean, I think that there's a potential for that to happen. I think he's going to be in the conversation. I think that we might have a player for maybe, I mean, I don't know that I can ever remember anyone from SLU being remotely in that conversation. I think Javonte is going to really make a big splash through conference season, and whatever happens after that in terms of postseason. I don't want to make a.
So, Collin, what does that translate into for Javonte in terms of?
I think he gets drafted. I think he gets drafted 100%.
At what level, I guess, is my question. How
Well,
valuable do you think he is?
Seth Greenberg kind of threw some cold water on both.
Yeah, and that's the
But
thing, though.
I think he's right. Like, as special of a talent as Javonte is, like, we need to be reminded that every year there are top 10 picks who are supposed to be phenomenal. The next, like the second coming in the NBA, right? Like the second coming of LeBron James, and they have a great year or two, and something goes wrong, personally, or to Seth's point, maybe they're just not a fit for the team. Like, there's only 5 to 10 players on each roster that get a significant amount of playing time. Is as good as you are, you got to be a fit, right? And an NBA fit in 2005 is very different from an NBA fit in 2010, 2020. So I raise that point to say, as good as Javonte is, I think Seth is right. Like, it's more about the fit than it is about the skill set.
He's totally right.
I agree with that, but my other issue with that point is that this year I think it's going to be different, as everything kind of is. And maybe I'm completely misreading this, but I feel like you're probably going to see maybe a smaller pool of like really exciting draftable talent coming out of this year, either because players aren't really willing to sacrifice the value of staying at college for another year and getting a full regular season under their belt to maybe increase their draft stock, versus a guy like Javonte, who's a senior, who's got really no other option in terms of staying in college. He's going to have to go to the draft if he's going to do it. And I think he's going to be, whether he fits perfectly or doesn't fit perfectly or has success in the NBA level, I think his stock and his value is probably going to be very high. And I think, top 5 rounds doesn't seem impossible.
Are there 5 rounds? I don't remember the last time I watched the NBA draft.
I think top 5. I think it's like 10 rounds, isn't it? 10 or 15.
What Javonte's got going for him is he's just a pure scorer. I mean, all levels. And right now, I think more than ever, that's what's most valued at the NBA level. I mean, Javonte, he can get to the hoop. He can pull up. He's hitting deep threes and without hesitation. I mean, Yuri gets him the ball and it goes up.
It's so
and
easy.
Zach, I don't know if it was Zach or Collin. You mentioned it on your podcast with Seth. Javonte's the kind of player, at least this year, where he puts up a shot and you just know it's going in, like before it even hits the rim. You're like, oh, it's Javonte, it's good.
Yeah,
like the LSU game. All right, get back on D. Like Javonte's put the shot up.
Yeah, I talked about it I will, or I don't even know how we're cutting this up, but I will talk about it in our recap of the last game. The team's name is escaping me right now. Pine Bluff? No, I don't know.
Pine Bluff.
No, you're Central Arkansas. So in that game, you watched Javonte struggle. And I think with the game against LSU, SIUE, and Pine Bluff, that Javonte kind of fell in love with his jump shot a lot. And I don't know whether it was his decision or Travis kind of goading him or one of the other coaches to get to the rim and maybe attack the basket. And instead of pulling up from 15, pull up for a little floater from 5 or 6, And once he did that, the floodgates started to open for him and the rest of the team, and they started to kind of put it on Pine Bluff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Perkins just scores at every level of the court. And I mean, anything inside about 5 feet or 5 or 6 feet is absolute cash money.
Yeah. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of that in Gibson too. I mean,
Yeah.
teams are scouting him as a 3-point shooter, so they're getting out to him on defense. Gibson's faking him, stepping in, and he's hitting the long range too, almost every time. I mean, he's getting to the hoop too. I mean, imagine, and he's, a freshman, so to say.
Yes.
Give him a couple more years. He's going to be scary.
And that leads to my hot take is that Gibson Jimerson will have the longest he will spend the most time in the NBA of any of the players on the team. I think he is the kind of guy that can as long as he can defend a guy in the NBA, I think he's a guy that teams will happily sign as their, a guy on the bench that when they need a 3-point shooter, a gunner to come in and nail it. I mean, the kind of the Jason Caponos of the NBA, the Tyler Heroes of the NBA.
Right.
And if he can improve his game even more and add facets to his game, I don't know where his ceiling is. But I have a lot of thoughts on Markai versus speaking of young
TJ.
guns, TJ. And I think, and I don't mean to be negative toward TJ, but everybody knows, and TJ even knows that he came in as kind of the, like a guy who still needed to put it together in college. He had his baby deer moments. He's a big kid. Maybe isn't grown into his body. Doesn't have full kind of isn't. Doesn't know exactly what he can and can't do yet. Where I think Markai comes in with much more basketball savvy, really has a great understanding of and as good as Hargrove is going to be with development. I think Markai Strickland has a chance to be better than him and Perkins, because his starting point is a little bit higher than TJ.
Yeah, and I think Markai came into the program a little bit more familiar with that top level talent that you see across the board in D1. Coming from IMG, you're playing against some really tough competition, and that's not to discredit TJ coming out of St. Louis. There's some fantastic ball players, but I think the range of skill sets is broader. When you think about Markai, he was matching up against a lot of Division I talent, week after week. And so that's why I think you talk about like his transition to Division I basketball has been a little bit easier. Credit to TJ though. I mean, he's again, to hit on this concept of putting your ego aside, he's coming off the bench, probably not getting as much playing time as he would like early on in the season, but really buying into his role and hitting threes, to my biggest surprise, hitting threes, lots of threes. And I know that, TJ,
that three against Central Arkansas. Very nice, TJ. Thank you for that.
Right.
Thank you for that.
But, just a comment about TJ, last year there was a little bit of struggle. And I'm trying to say this the right way. There was a debate around, should TJ redshirt, right? Does he need some time to develop? And I think, whether or not you believe personally that was the right decision, I think he held his own last year, and he matched up well physically with some guys. His athleticism proved invaluable. His ability to just get up and down the court, and he's just exciting. Like, he throws down thunderous dunks. I see him as kind of the second coming of Jordan Goodwin, in the sense of like being a passionate Billiken, right?
Yes.
Like, I think he really carries that Billiken energy well, and there's going to be big vacancy for that when Jordan Goodwin, whether it's this year or whenever, steps away from the program. You need that sort of like gladiator to rally around. When you're down 3 with a minute left against a top 25 team, who's managing the huddle, right? Who's bringing the excitement? Who's reminding these guys that we can get this win? And I think TJ has an opportunity to step into that role. So credit to TJ for really stepping up both this past year and this year. I think he's going to be a fantastic Billiken when it's all said and done.
It's impressive. Some of these guys you see constantly on social media, these Twitter accounts and these like they're constantly getting Instagram stories, and they're re-Instagramming them, and it's like, league him, put him in the league, and it's impressive for a lot of these guys. Like, obviously, you as a person who understands college basketball, you take all that with a grain of salt. But again, you worry about your players really taking this kind of the kind of pumping of the tires to heart, and kind of feeling themselves a little bit more than they need to. But it's impressive to see a guy like TJ kind of swallow that pride, or that, that feeling that I'm the best damn player there is in East St. Louis. And then you come to college, and you gotta sit on that and kind of put the work in. And it's really good to see that Travis is bringing in guys who are here to work, and not just here thinking they are gonna get everything handed to them.
And that's tough, right? Because I mean, every Division I basketball player, a lot of these guys come from really tough backgrounds, and they get to Division I ball, and I think they're all fantastic players again, but I think 99% of them think that they're going to the league, right? And so for a guy like TJ to kind of take a step back and have that kind of like humbling moment, I think is super powerful, because I think our team has had experiments in the past, even recently, with a guy like Cartier Gordon, who comes in, top 10 recruit in the country, 5-star guy, thinks he's a one and done. The reality is, if you come in with that mentality, the chemistry is going to be off. And I think we saw that first and foremost. He didn't blend with the team because he came in with that superstar mentality. And credit to him, he was a fantastic player, but I think that's the reason that it didn't work. And it's a shame, because I think he would have been a fantastic fit for our program. He was a special talent. Had he really locked in and set himself right from a mentality perspective, I think he did have that path to the NBA. But you got to be patient, right? You got to do what you got to do to get there, to make yourself valuable for those 32 clubs, whatever it is. So I think that experiment, if you want to call it that, didn't work, but I think it proved a very valuable lesson for everybody around St. Louis basketball, around what happens when you do versus when you don't buy in.
All right, everybody and their mom that listens to this podcast knows I'm a gear whore. I love SLU Billikens gear. I troll eBay daily to see what's out there, see what I can find. And Collin, you can splice this in wherever, probably at the end. But besides your A10 championship ring, because I know you hold that near and dear to your heart.
I got two now.
Your two A10 championship rings. I will end up buying that from you one day when you decide to sell it on eBay. Anyway, what is your favorite piece of Billiken gear that you have? If you didn't have to like dress up every day, and you were just like, you're one thing that you'd be like a cartoon character you'd wear every day if you could.
But like, honestly, like, because of COVID, like, I work remotely now. I don't dress up anymore. And every year, and by the way, Ford and Michael Wilson, if you're listening, I haven't gotten my gear care package this year.
Whoa.
But credit to them. Every season they send me a bunch of great stuff, and it's like the authentic like team wear. I mean, this is a shirt right here. If you look closely, the coaches will wear it on the bench. But I'm like loaded up with all this like Nike dry fit gear. So my friends like joke. They see me in the gym, and I'm like decked out in SLU gear. It's like all I wear because it's free gym wear. I'm at home on Zoom and video calls. I'm wearing stuff like this all the time. So to say I have a favorite pair of clothing would be difficult. I will, though, make a comment, and it's a little bit sentimental. When we made our first run to the NCAA tournament under Rick Majerus, Rick and my dad had a really, really special bond. Rick would call my dad after the games, and whether my dad was asleep or whatever, Rick would leave voicemails for my dad just ranting about who we played and what worked and what didn't and how we're going to adjust our coaching, et cetera, et cetera. My dad would wake up to these like hour-long voicemails. And I say that to mention they had a really strong relationship. And at the end of that season, Rick gave my dad – what year was it? I'm blanking on the year, but Rick gave my dad his NCAA tournament watch. So every year the NCAA tournament gives, a March Madness official watch to each of the coaches that qualify. Wow. And he gave that to my dad extremely selflessly. And it's something that my dad still has, and he kind of cherishes it as his, the way that he remembers Rick. And it's just something that's like super exciting to look at, because I really view that as like the turning point in the history of the program. So that's something that, is not necessarily an item of clothing, but near and dear to our family's heart as a memory of Rick.
You mentioned Michael Wilson and Ford Stu, and I mean, those two guys are just incredible dudes, like been nothing but supportive to us and our endeavors over here. I mean, we can't thank them enough. By the way, happy birthday shout out to Michael Wilson. It's his birthday, Sunday the 13th. So when this comes out, it'll be a belated birthday. But happy birthday, Michael. But yeah, that's such a cool story about that watch, dude. We'll have to have him show it to us when we get him on the pod. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
I love that story. First of all, I love the story of your dad, and because it's somewhere like I feel like that's something I like, the story of not being able to pay, and then really just cherishing that SLU degree and wanting that SLU degree and needing that SLU degree, and then kind of trying to give back to the program where you can. And I mean, I'm not the most scholarly person or the most hardworking person in the world. So I think this podcast is kind of where I can try to do my part to give back to a college that's given me so much and a program that's given me so much. So it really does that story just it means so much to me, and it's kind of an inspiration to me as well. So
and I will say, I hear a lot about like the SLU fans, and they always say to like guys like my dad, even guys like me, like how happy they are that they have folks like us that are involved in the program and willing to contribute. But I'd say that like the payback that my dad has felt, and I'll let him talk about it when you speak with him, but to this day, he'll say, the investment in Chaifetz Arena is the best investment I've ever made. And he doesn't mean that, monetarily. Obviously there's no direct ROI, but my dad's, professional businessman with a storied experience, and he's made a lot of those investments along the way. And to his credit, anytime anybody asks him, the best investment he ever made is contribution to SLU. And I think it's because he's seen how far it's carried the school, how far it's carried the program, the basketball program, and how thankful people are. And like you asked me, one of the things that I and we and my family miss about the season, walking into Chaifetz Arena and just seeing how thankful and excited people are to see my dad there. And we can't go to a game without 10 people who he's never met before walking up to him and personally thanking him. And and they got the big cutout heads in the crowd, and that's just exciting, because at the time it was a major commitment to my dad, and to see him kind of feel that payback on an emotional level really means a lot to him and my family. So I just say that to mention that we appreciate your appreciation, if that makes sense.
We appreciate that you appreciate our appreciation.
And shout out to Michael Wilson. Happy birthday. I'll text you after this. I didn't realize it was your birthday. And to your point, guys like him, guys like Ford, great for the program, passionate about school, passionate about the city, and really instrumental in recruiting and getting the guys to buy in. So, all the way up and down the coaching staff, every guy is critical, and all their contributions are absolutely appreciated.
Well, Ross, thanks for getting up early. Sorry, my alarm didn't go off. Appreciate you joining the pod, and we will talk to you again this season, and we look forward to that, as well as talking to your dad.
Cool. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Ross. So once again, big shout out to Ross Chaifetz for coming on. We appreciate that as always. Great conversation. Had a great time talking to him. It was a conversation that really almost never ended. It felt like it just kept going because there's so much we could talk about, and we could talk for hours with him over Billikens basketball.
It was awesome. I thank you again, Ross. And it's always fun to hear from him and talk Billiken basketball with him. He's super passionate. It's pretty great to have him and Rich around the program.
And hopefully we get a little bit more from Ross Chaifetz as the year goes on. Fingers crossed.
And maybe a little bit from Rich Chaifetz.
Yeah. Little preview of something that we might or might not have in the works there. Anyway, let's move on to a new segment. This is going to wrap up the show right here for this week. Zach, take it away. New segment from our sponsors at Manscaped.
Yeah, we have our Manscaped Werewolf of the Week. Manscaped is manscaped.com, number one in men's below the waist grooming. Make sure you head over to their website, manscaped.com, for your holiday shopping. When you use promo code HOUSE, you're going to get 20% off plus free shipping on your entire order. This is huge for the pod. Helps us out. They've been good enough to join us for this season, at least for this month. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, remember, we like our players to be werewolves on the court. The ladies don't necessarily like it off the court. So head over to manscaped.com and get yourself something nice to keep yourself well groomed. Werewolf of the Week, inspired obviously by Billikens.com. It's the player that put forth. I feel like it's the most effort, man. It's the player that really came out and really, was just on top of things from start to finish in the week. And I thought it'd be a 2-game aggregate, but with the cancellation, it's only 1. So with that being said, I think we're going to hand out the Manscaped Werewolf of the Week, or at least I will. Collin will have his pick, but I think we got to hand it out to Yuri Collins, man. The guy was all over the place in every facet of that game. Assist to turnover ratio, outstanding, above and beyond what you expect from Yuri Collins. He went even further above and beyond and made 2 or 3 big time 3-point shots when the offense was incredibly stagnant, and really got the ball rolling with this team.
Yeah, I think, to offer a little bit of a different perspective, because I probably would have picked Yuri Collins. But because you've gone with Yuri Collins, I'm going to go with something different. Jordan Goodwin. Jordan Goodwin had an all-over-the-place game, 6 steals. Again, I think, on top of the 11 rebounds and the 15 points, I think the 6 steals is certainly another sign of, as we talked about, his defensive effort and defensive prowess on the court. And his contributions to this team, always a high-energy, high-effort guy. So Jordan Goodwin will be my werewolf of the week.
Congratulations to our Manscaped Werewolves of the Week. Remember, please head over to manscaped.com. Holidays are coming up. They'll get you your order by Christmas. 20% off, promo code HOUSE. Do it. We can't thank Manscaped enough for being a partner. Go head over to manscaped.com. 20% off.
Yep. So again, thank you to all of our sponsors, Manscaped Mortgage Partners Group, and anyone else that is considering. Wink, wink. There you go. Appreciate everyone. Zach, anything else we need to touch on?
No, God willing, there will be a game Tuesday night and maybe one Thursday, and who knows what they'll get scheduled. So
at this point, we could have a game Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So
I think Thursday would be a nice medium. I think that's probably where you're going to see the games show up. Obviously, don't forget to follow us on all the social medias: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I think we're on Instagram too, but that's. I think figure that out.
Yeah, given some of the stuff that we're talking about developing, there might be some more movement on Instagram. But certainly make sure that if you are on Instagram, hit us with a follow. We'll start putting more stuff on there, even if it's just clips from the show. That stuff will go up, and there will be more content to look up there as well. But like Zach said, follow us on all forms of social media. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, all the like, subscribe. Drop a rating, everything.
Whatever you can do.
All hugely appreciated. And again, I'm going to touch on this real quick before we close out the show here. With Manscaped, it's partly going to be about how much you guys are interacting with their content or with their products and buying their products and supporting the show using our code. But it's also going to be about interaction on social media and how much engagement we're getting. So everything that you guys do, from liking our tweets when we put out the show to reposting the show announcements to tweeting out the copies or the images of your receipts, giving the show more ratings. Right now we're at 58 on iTunes. If we could get to 100 by, I don't know, the end of January when we finish up our trial run with Manscaped, that would be huge. All these things are really important. So anything you can do, even if it's not monetary, if you can engage more and just help kind of share the show out there and get it out there and expand it more and get more exposure for us, it all matters. It all counts, and it's all valuable for us right now. So anything you guys can do, we really appreciate it. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you guys for everything that you've done up until this point to get us to an opportunity like this. And we look forward to what is coming down the road with the rest of the season. With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in as always. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for following along. Check back next time for more content.